But we're going to start out the rest of the show with a recipe that is just near and dear to my heart. And for those of you who watch the show, you know how close my grandmother and I were. And she passed away probably, well, we're going on a couple years now, 1.5 to 2 years. And I love, every time I make one of her recipes, I feel like she's in the kitchen with me again. And so I have a lot of her recipes in my cookbook, just old family recipes that she was known for. Well, there was a recipe that she always made during the holidays. I mean, always, always, always. And I didn't have it. I did not have the recipe. And, you know, so moral of that story, get those family recipes and get them written down. So I couldn't find it. Well, lo and behold, I was going through one of her cookbooks a while back, just one of her, she collected all these different community cookbooks, and there it was. And it was all circled and pencil writings and a few notations, and I mean, I wanted to cry. I mean, it was just like, wow, I gotta make this. I gotta make this every holiday. So here it is, I'm gonna make it. It's Mimi, which I called my grandmother Mimi. It's her tomato pudding. And it is just delicious. We always served it with prime rib roast or beef tenderloin roast, and always, always, always at the holidays. It was tradition in our house. And I did some research on it, and it's actually a very old-fashioned recipe. It's something that they served a lot of in the 40s and 50s and even the 60s. And don't think pudding like the pudding you're thinking of. It's nothing like that. It's more of a casserole. So sip of coffee, I'm going to get to work, and you're going to see how wonderful this recipe really is. I need to check on mine to see how it's doing in the oven, because I want to get a little color on it, but not too much. Looks perfect. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to melt a stick of butter, and this is a super easy recipe and also really inexpensive. But somehow when it cooks together in a casserole, it just, I don't know, to me it's something fancy. Just means special. Special occasion. So I'm going to melt a stick of butter. Carefully melt that, and do not let me burn the butter. And in a saucepan here, I've got 1 can, this is a 15-ounce can of tomato puree. Not tomato sauce, not crushed tomatoes, not diced tomatoes, tomato puree. P-U-R-E-E is what you're looking for. And basically, it's got a little bit of texture to it. So this is a 15-ounce can of tomato puree. Season this with a little bit of salt and pepper. 1.5 cups of brown sugar, and you're going, what in the world? This sounds like the weirdest recipe ever. Trust me on this one, it's just delicious. And 1/4 cup of water. And I just want to heat this together until the brown sugar dissolves with that tomato mixture. Okay. How's my butter doing? I don't want to burn my butter. Now, I've got a loaf of white bread, and we just picked this up at Festival. I actually called them and said, could you make us a loaf of white bread and just unsliced? But you can use, we want a firmer texture bread is what we're looking for. So a firmer texture bread, you can even use the sliced, but I want to get rid of the crust is what I want to do. So we can save that for stuffing or something like that. And the recipe calls for about 4 cups. Now, Mimi would just use, you know, sandwich bread and just get rid of the crust. So whatever you have, French bread would work too. You know, and I was actually thinking of ways to kind of more gourmet this recipe. And in another show, I'll do that because I thought, how can we bring this recipe really up to date? But today's show is about old-fashioned Christmas, so I'm going to do it the way Mimi would have served it. But, you know, I was thinking of, you could add fresh basil to this. You could add, you know, cheese. So we'll do that another time. But today we're going to stick with what I grew up with. So I'm just going to get rid of those crusts. How's it looking there, Ann?
Pretty darn good.
I think every family has a recipe or 2 or 3 or maybe 4 that are just, you know, passed down, handed down. And there's just nothing like those. I think, you know, in every one of my cookbooks I sign, cook up some memories. And it was just, I was trying to think what to sign in the cookbooks, and I wanted something that really meant something. And one night, in the middle of the night, it just came to me. And I just believe it. I don't, food to me isn't just about food. Food is about, you know, sometimes you smell something and it just takes you right back, or you have a bite of something and, you know, you're right back there. am eating, Christmas dinner with my family and my grandparents when I was a little kid, and even though they're past now, if you can pass on those traditions and keep them going and cook up some memories, I really think it's what life's all about. Okay, getting philosophical on you today. I'm going to start tearing up soon. Anyway, so I want to take this bread and kind of cube it up. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we did it in a casserole dish about this size. That's what Mimi did it in, because it's really rich and a little dab will do you. Just a couple spoonfuls of this really is all you need. But if you've got a big family, I would definitely double the recipe. Okay, so I want to get my bread cubes into my greased casserole dish, and they didn't have cooking spray back then, so she would have just buttered the dish. She used to, every holiday, she'd set the coolest table, and sometimes we'd have this for New Year's, and she always put those little crackers, those crackers, those you know what I'm talking about? Abby, you know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Like for not the crackers you eat. No, they were like New Year's tradition, like they pop open and there's little treats inside. Okay, somebody email me. You know what I'm talking about. They're just little gimmicky things that you can pick up at party stores, and they're like party favors, and she'd, it was like her thing. I'm going to have to bring them in. I'm not crazy. Well, I may be a little crazy, but this really is true. Maybe they call them something else.
I'm unfamiliar.
No? Oh, goodness. Somebody out there knows what I'm talking about. They're just like little, you put them at the table for like place settings, and then you open them up, and they make kind of a crack, and they've got little toys and little things in there for kids, and that's always a big thing. Okay. Now I'm going to take my 1 stick of melted butter, and I'm going to drizzle this over the top. Christmas crackers. Abby got online. See, I have not totally lost my mind. But you probably never heard of them, did you? See, you looked them up online. See, that's old-fashioned too, but they're kind of fun. We always look forward to it. Got a kick out of it. Okay, now we take this tomato, brown sugar, a little bit of water mixture, and I just brought it to a little bit of a simmer so that brown sugar dissolves. And I'm just going to pour this over. You don't really need to stir it at this point. And you can see what's going to happen. Basically, with all that bread in there and the butter, and it's going to poof up and make a really nice souffle kind of type thing. Okay, now this gets into the oven, and our oven temperature for this was about 375, was it?
Something like that.
I'm going to check that real quick. I'm going to give that a check. I want to get Mimi's recipe right on. 325, between 350, 325. They bake things at a lower temperature back then, a lot. So I'd 325, 350. Every oven is different. If you're making a roast in there at the same time, just bake it at the same time as the roast. It's all going to be good. This is one of those that's going to turn out perfect every time. But you do want to get a little color on it, and it's going to take a good 45 minutes to an hour to bake. So I want to show it to you. So I'm really excited about this, as you can tell. Oh yeah. And you want to get that little bit of brown on there. And there you go. It's Mimi's tomato pudding. Always serve this with prime rib roasts for the holidays or beef tenderloin, and it is just delicious. Bubbly hot out of the oven. Get a little brown on top. And sure, you could throw some Parmesan cheese on there too, and a little fresh basil if you wanted to, but this is how we grew up with it. And it is yummy, I promise you. Recipes on our website. You can also pick it up at any area Festival Foods.